What if that nagging feeling in the back of your neck was real? What if those hands reaching out from the dark that you believed were there were there? What if the monster in the basement really existed? And what if there was really something under the bed? Would you have the courage to face your fears?
Hello, Brave Souls. Today we've got part 4 of the Frozen Dead series. It's actually the final part, so I hope you guys have enjoyed this series up to this point, and I hope you guys enjoyed this story. So let's just get right to it. We left at first light with the temperature reading negative 19 degrees. Calvin drove the pickup truck, a Ford F-250 with chains on the tires and a reinforced grille that Steve had welded on the front. I rode shotgun, literally and figuratively, with my rifle across my lap. In the back seat were two of Calvin's people. Rodriguez, a compact woman in her 30s who'd been a military police officer, and Chen, no relation to Robert, a quiet man in his 20s who'd worked base security. Rules, Calvin says as we pulled away from the lodge. 1, we stick together, no wandering off. 2, we don't engage unless we have to. Our mission is supplies, not body count. 3, if something goes sideways, we get back to the truck and we leave. Nobody plays hero. Everyone clear? We all nodded. Through the truck's back window, I could see people watching us from the lodge porch. Tom, Gloria, Vanessa. Jake stood next to Sarah, his hand raised in a small wave. I waved back, hoping it wasn't the last time I'd see them. The drive to Governor took 3 hours. The roads were buried underneath snow, and we had to navigate around abandoned vehicles and fallen trees. Calvin drove with practiced caution, never going faster than 25 miles per hour, always watching for black ice or weak spots where the road might have washed out beneath the snow. We passed through 2 small towns, or what was left of them. Richville was completely abandoned, its main street a corridor of dark storefronts and frozen bodies half buried in drifts. We saw movement in a few places, infected trapped in buildings, clawing at windows, but nothing that posed an immediate threat. "Look at that," Rodriguez said, pointing to a church where someone had painted a message on white clapboard. "Gone south to FEMA, March 2025. God help us." "March?" Chen said quietly. "That was 8 months ago. Think they made it?" "No," Calvin said flatly. "There is no FEMA. There is no government. There's just us and everyone else trying to survive." We drove on in silence. Governor appeared through the trees around noon. It was a larger town than Richville, maybe 4,000 people before the outbreak. Now it looked like a war zone. Cars were crashed into buildings, storefronts were shattered, and bodies, both human and infected, lay scattered in the streets. "Jesus," Rodriguez whispered. Calvin slowed to a crawl, scanning the area. Vet clinic should be on the east side, near the edge of town. Private practice, single building, parking lot. Owner was ex-military. Liked to keep to himself. Probably why it wasn't looted. "Or it's full of infected," I said. "That too." We navigated through the town carefully, avoiding the main streets where possible. I saw more spray-painted messages. "No food here. Infected inside. Sarah plus kids. We went to Watertown." Each one a small tragedy, a story that would never be finished. The veterinary clinic sat in a corner lot, a single-story brick building with a faded sign. Governor Animal Hospital, Dr. James Patterson, DVM. The parking lot was empty, except for one vehicle, a green Subaru with New York plates, buried underneath snow. Calvin stopped the truck 50 yards away and killed the engine. We sat there, watching, listening. Nothing moved. No sounds except the wind. "Could be clear," Rodriguez said hopefully. "Could be full of frozen infected waiting to thaw," I countered. Calvin picked up a pair of binoculars and studied the building. Windows are intact. Doors looked closed. No obvious signs of breach. He lowered the binoculars. "We check it out, slow and careful. Rodriguez and I go first. Marcus, you and Chen cover from here. If we signal all clear, you follow. If we signal danger, you start the truck and be ready to move." "Got it," I said. Calvin and Rodriguez climbed out of the truck, weapons ready. They moved toward the clinic in a tactical formation I recognized from movies, but had never seen in person. One covering while the other advanced, leapfrogging forward. They reached the front door, and Calvin tried the handle. Locked. He gestured to Rodriguez, who moved around to check the back. He disappeared around the corner of the building, and I felt my heart rate kick up. Long seconds passed. Then she reappeared and gave Calvin a thumbs up. Calvin waved us forward. Chen and I approached the building, keeping my rifles up. Rodriguez had found a back door that opened into what looked like a storage area. We slipped inside, and immediately the temperature difference hit me. It was still cold, but maybe 30 degrees warmer than outside. Cold enough to see your breath, but not cold enough to freeze instantly. The clinic interior was dark and still. We moved through the storage room into a hallway, lined with examination rooms. One door stood ajar, and through it I could see metal tables and medical equipment. Everything was dusty but intact. It didn't look like anyone had been here in months. "Pharmacy should be in the back," Calvin whispered. "Patterson would have been controlled substance in a secure location." We found it behind a door marked "Staff Only," a small room lined with shelves and refrigerators. The refrigerators were dark and useless without power, but the shelves held exactly what we needed. Bottles of pills, vials of injectable medications, boxes of syringes and medical supplies. I pulled out Jake's list and started matching names. Amoxicillin, check. Tramadol, check. Ketamine, check. Holy shit, he's got everything. "Start loading," Calvin ordered. "We take it all. Don't bother being selective. Just grab everything that looks useful." We worked quickly, filling our backpacks with bottles and supplies. I was reaching for a high shelf when I heard it. A sound from somewhere else in the building. A scraping, shuffling sound. We all froze. "Infected?" Rodriguez mouthed. Calvin held up his hand for a silence. He listened. The sound came again. Definitely movement, coming from the front of the building. Something was in here with us. "Pack up now," Calvin whispered. "Quiet as you can." We loaded our bags as silently as possible, but every movement seemed impossibly loud in the stillness. The shuffling sound grew closer. I could hear breathing now. Wet, labored breathing. Calvin pointed toward the back door. We moved in single file, Rodriguez leading me in the rear. We were almost to the storage room when a figure appeared in the hallway ahead of us. It had been a large man once, maybe 6'4" and 300 pounds. Now it was a frozen nightmare. Skin gray and black with frostbite, clothes torn and bloody, eyes milky and dead. But the size hadn't changed. This thing was massive, and it was blocking our exit. "Back," Calvin hissed. We reversed direction, moving toward the front of the building. Behind us, the infected man shambled forward, arms outstretched. He moved slowly. The cold had locked his joints, but he was persistent. We reached the reception area, just as another infected emerged from an examination room. This one had been a woman, wearing what looked like veterinary scrubs. She was faster than the man, less affected by the cold. "Front door," I said. "We go through the front." Calvin tried the door, locked from the inside, but with a deadbolt he could turn. He twisted it, threw the door open, and we spilled out into the parking lot, right into a crowd of infected. There were at least 20 of them, scattered across the lot and street beyond. They'd been standing motionless, frozen in place, but our sudden appearance activated them. Heads turned, arms reached. They began shuffling toward us. "Truck!" Calvin shouted. We ran. The infected were slow, but there were so many of them, and they were coming from multiple directions. I heard gunfire behind me. Rodriguez taking down the two that had followed us out of the clinic. Chen was firing at the ones blocking our path to the truck. I saw Calvin reach the F-250, saw him throw open the driver's door. Then I saw the infected man who'd been hiding beneath the truck. He grabbed Calvin's ankle and pulled. Calvin went down hard. his rifle flying from his hands. The infected man, wearing what looked like a snowplow operator's uniform, pulled himself up Calvin's leg, reaching for his throat. I didn't think. I ran forward and kicked the infected man in the head as hard as I could. My boot connected with a sickening crunch, and he released Calvin's leg. I kicked again, then put 2 rounds from my Glock into his skull. He stopped moving. "Get up!" I hauled Calvin to his feet. We piled into the truck, Calvin driving, Rodriguez in front with me, Chen in the back. Calvin started the engine and reversed hard, crushing an infected woman beneath the wheels. Then he threw it into drive and accelerated. We plowed through the crowd of infected, the reinforced grill doing its job. Bodies bounced off the hood or disappeared beneath the tires. Calvin didn't slow down until we were clear of town, doing 40 miles per hour on snow-covered road that wouldn't be suicide under normal circumstances. "Everyone okay?" he gasped. "Alive," Rodriguez said. "Jesus Christ, that was close." I looked at Calvin's leg where the infected man had grabbed him. His pants were torn, but I couldn't see any blood. "You're not bitten?" "No, scratched maybe, but not bitten." He glanced at me. "You saved my life back there, Professor. Thank you." "You would have done the same." "Yeah, but you actually did it, and that counts for something." We drove for another hour in tense silence, constantly watching the road ahead and behind. But nothing followed us, and by the time we reached Richville, we were starting to believe we might actually make it back. That's when the truck started making a grinding noise. Calvin pulled over immediately, and we all climbed out to investigate. Chen crawled into the truck and emerged with a grim expression. "Differential is damaged. Probably hit something when we were running over those things. We can make it a few more miles, maybe, but it's going to fail." "How far to Timshell?" I asked. Calvin checked the map. 22 miles. "Can we walk that?" "Not in this cold. Not carrying this much weight." He looked at the sky, which was darkening with approaching weather, and not with a storm coming. Rodriguez studied the town around us. "We could hole up here, find a secure building, and wait out the storm, then walk back when it clears." "The truck?" Chen asked. "We strip it for supplies and abandon it. No choice." Calvin slammed his fist against the hood in frustration. "God damn it! Gloria's going to kill me." "Gloria's going to be happy we're alive," I said. "The truck is replaceable. We're not." We spent the next hour searching for shelter. Most of the buildings in Richville were too exposed or already compromised, but we found a small brick library that looked intact. The doors were locked, but Chen managed to force one open with a crowbar we'd taken from the clinic. The interior was cold and dark, but structurally sound. We barricaded the doors, cleared the building room by room to make sure we were alone, and set up camp in the main reading room. Calvin tried the radio, but either we were too far from Timshell or the approaching storm was interfering. We couldn't raise anyone. "We'll try again in the morning," he said. "For now, we can serve heat, take turns on watch, and wait this out." The storm hit around midnight. I was on watch when the first flakes started falling. Within minutes, it became a full blizzard, wind howling, snow coming down so thick you couldn't see more than a few feet. The temperature plummeted. Even inside the library, it was brutally cold. We huddled together in our sleeping bags, trying to conserve body heat. Rodriguez had found some books and were burning them in a metal trash can for warmth, a sacrilege that would have horrified me 8 months ago. But now it was just survival. The fire didn't provide much heat, but it was something. "Tell me about before," Rodriguez said, staring at the flames. "Before all this, what did you do, Professor?" "I taught. American literature, mostly. The classics. Steinbeck, Hemingway, Fitzgerald." "Did you like it?" I thought about that. I thought I did. Now I'm not sure. I liked the ideas, the discussions about meaning and purpose, but I think I was hiding in books instead of actually living. I fed another torn page into the fire. "What about you?" "Military police, 8 years. I liked it. Clear rules, clear purpose. Then I got stationed at Fort Drum and met somebody." Got married, had a kid. Her voice went quiet. They didn't make it out. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. Everyone's lost someone. She looked at me. You learn to carry it. The grief doesn't get smaller. You just get stronger at carrying it. Calvin stirred from where he'd been trying to sleep. Storm's getting worse. We might be here a while. He was right. The blizzard lasted 3 days. We survived on the supplies we'd brought and the meager heat from our book-burning fire. The temperature inside the library hovered around 0 degrees, cold enough that we had to keep moving to avoid hypothermia, but warm enough that we weren't in immediate danger of freezing to death. On the second day, Calvin finally raised Timshell on the radio. Gloria's voice came through, crackling like static. Calvin, where the hell are you? Richville. Truck broke down. We're weathering the storm. We're all alive, and we got the supplies. Storm's hitting us too. We've lost power. Generator froze up. How long can you hold out? Calvin looked at our dwindling piles of books to burn. 3 more days, maybe 4. After that, we'll have to risk the walk. Negative. You stay put. When the storm clears, we'll come get you. Gloria out. The radio went silent. Rodriguez looked at me. You trust her to come? Yes, I said without hesitation. Gloria doesn't leave people behind. The third day was the worst. We were out of food, down to our last books to burn, and the cold was seeping into our bones. Chen had stopped talking, just sat wrapped in his sleeping bag and shivered. Rodriguez kept checking her weapons obsessively. Calvin tried to stay positive, but I could see the strain in his face. I found myself thinking about David and his family, about the choice he'd made to take them to the high school shelter, believing it was the right thing to do, about how sometimes you make the right decision you can with the information you have, and it still goes wrong. I thought about Gloria, dying slowly while trying to save everyone else, about Jake, 12 years old and traumatized, but still showing up every day, about Vanessa and Mike, staying behind to save Robert's life, about all the small acts of courage and sacrifice I'd witnessed over the past months. We were so fragile, so breakable, but we kept choosing to try. Timshell, thou mayest. The storm broke on the morning of the 4th day. We emerged from the library into a world transformed. Snow had drifted 10 feet high in places, completely remaking the landscape. The cold was absolute, probably -40 with a wind chill. We can't walk in this, Chen said. His first words in 24 hours. We'd die before we make it 5 miles. Then we wait for Gloria, Calvin said, and we hope she can make it through. We spent the day rationing our last energy bars and trying to stay warm. We kept watch at second-floor window, scanning the road for any signs of rescue. The sun traced its low arc across the southern sky, and the shadows grew long. Then, just before sunset, I saw it. A flash of yellow in the distance. The plow! I shouted. Gloria's coming! The snowplow emerged from the white landscape like a miracle, its massive blade throwing snow aside, its engine roaring. Behind it came 2 pickup trucks, following in the cleared path. We ran outside, waving our arms. Gloria stopped the plow and climbed down, looking exhausted but determined. Tom was in one of the trucks, Mike in the other. You people look like shit, Gloria said. But she was smiling. You came, I said stupidly. Told you I don't leave people behind. She looked at our gear. You got the meds? All of them, Calvin confirmed. Mission accomplished. Well, let's get the hell home. The ride back to Chimshell took 2 hours. We rode in Tom's truck, wrapped in blankets, slowly thawing out. Tom filled us in what we missed. The storm had been brutal. They'd lost 3 cabin roofs to snow load, and the generator had indeed frozen. Steve was working on repairs, but they'd been without electricity for 3 days. Any infected activity? Calvin asked. None. Storm was too severe. Everything out there is frozen solid. Tom glanced at us in the rearview mirror. But the temperature's climbing. We're up to -5 now. By next week, We could see above -0 for the first time, or we could see above 0 for the first time since November. That's good, right? Rodriguez asked. For us, maybe, but it also means the infected will start moving again. And spring is coming, which means... You didn't need to finish. Spring meant the thaw. The real thaw. When hundreds of thousands of infected across New York would become fully mobile again. We arrived at Timshell after dark to find people waiting on the lodge porch with lanterns. Vanessa rushed forward as we climbed out of the truck, immediately checking us for injuries. Jake was there too, his face lighting up when he saw me. You made it, he said. We did. We got everything on your list. His smile was the first genuine one I'd seen from him since we'd met. Really? Everything? Every single thing. You're a hell of a researcher, kid. Inside, the lodge was cold without the generator, but someone had gotten the wood stove blazing, and people had gathered around it. We distributed the medication to Vanessa, who looked like we'd handed her gold bars. Patricia had somehow put together a hot meal, venison and root vegetables, and we ate like we'd been starving. Gloria pulled me aside after dinner. You did good out there. Calvin told me what happened, how you saved him. Just reacted, didn't think about it. That's what leadership is sometimes. Reacting in the moment, doing what needs to be done. She looked at me seriously. I'm glad you made it back. These people need you. Gloria, I'm getting worse, Marcus. I can feel it. Maybe a month left, probably less. She held up her hand to stop my protest. I'm not afraid. I've made my peace. But you need to be ready. When I'm gone, this falls on you. Can you handle that? I looked around the room with the 42 survivors, talking, eating, being alive. I thought about everything we'd been through, everything we built together. It was terrifying and overwhelming and impossible. But it was also my choice. Yes, I said. I can handle it. Good. She squeezed my shoulder. Now get some rest. Tomorrow we start preparing for spring. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of activity. Steve got the generator working again, which meant we had electricity and heat. The temperature continued to climb. -5, then 0, then above freezing during the day. The snow began to melt, revealing the ground beneath the first time in months, and the infected began to move. We saw them from the windows and guard posts, solitary figures at first, shambling through the woods, then small groups, then larger ones. They were drawn by our presence, our heat, the signs of life. Tom organized increased patrols and watch rotations. We built additional barricades and cleared fields of fire around the lodge. Calvin and his military people ran drills, teaching everyone tactics and coordination. Even the kids participated. Jake proved to be a surprisingly good shot with a .22 rifle, and he helped train the 2 younger children in basic safety. Vanessa used the veterinary medications to set up a proper medical system. She trained 5 people in first aid and emergency responses. When one of the hunters broke his leg in a fall, she set it properly with real supplies instead of improvised materials. The man would walk with a limp, but he would walk. We were becoming something real, not just survivors huddled in the cold, but a community with systems and skills and purpose. Gloria grew weaker. It happened gradually at first, then rapidly. She stopped making her rounds in the snowplow. Then she stopped attending daily meetings. Then she stopped leaving her room. Vanessa did what she could, managing her pain with the limited medication we had. But there was no cure for cancer in the apocalypse. I visited her every day. We'd talk about the community, about plans for spring, about all the things that still needed to be done. She'd give advice, share insights from her years of experience, prepare me for the role I didn't want, but knew I'd have to take. You'll do fine, she said one afternoon in early March. She was in bed, thin and frail, but her eyes were still sharp. You care about people, and you think before you act. That's more than most leaders have. I'm scared I'll get someone killed. You will, probably. People die out here. It's just reality. But you'll also save people. You'll make hard choices and live with the consequences. Keep doing it because that's what leaders do. She smiled. Besides, you've got good people around you. Tom knows tactics, Calvin knows strategy, Vanessa knows medicine. You don't have to know everything. You just have to know who to ask. What about you? What did you know? I knew how to keep moving, how to not give up, even when everything seemed helpless. And I knew that as long as one person was still trying, there was still hope. She reached out and took my hand. Her grip was weak, barely there. Promise me something, Marcus. Anything. Don't let them forget. Don't let them forget what the world was like before. The books, the music, the art, the ideas. All the things that made us human. This winter, survival was everything. But when spring comes and you start rebuilding, remember that humans need more than food and shelter. They need meaning. They need beauty. They need reasons to be alive. I promised. Good. She closed her eyes. Now get out of here. You've got work to do. Gloria Henderson died on March 12th at 3:47 in the afternoon, with Vanessa holding her hand. We buried her the next day in a clearing near the lake, under a pine tree that had survived the winter. Tom said some words about duty and sacrifice. Calvin talked about courage and leadership. I tried to speak but couldn't get past the lump in my throat. Jake stepped forward instead. Gloria saved my mom and me. He said, his voice clear in the cold air. She gave us hope when we didn't have any. She showed us that even when the world ends, people can still choose to be good. We're all here because of her. We're all alive because she chose not to give up. He placed a small wooden cross in the grave, something he'd carved himself, with her name and dates roughly etched into the wood. Others stepped forward and added things. A cigarette from one of the guards who'd shared smokes with her. A radio microphone from someone she'd rescued. A pressed flower that Patricia had saved from before the outbreak. When everyone had paid their respects, we walked back to the lodge in silence. I stood on the porch, and I looked at the 41 people gathered around me. Scared, grieving, but still here. Still trying. She's right, Tom said quietly. You'll do fine. I don't feel fine. I feel terrified. Good. That means you understand the responsibility. He clapped me on the shoulder. Come on, we've got a community meeting to run. That night, I stood before everyone and accepted the role I'd been preparing for. I talked about Gloria's vision, about surviving winter and preparing for spring, about the challenges ahead and the need for everyone to contribute, about choosing hope over despair, community over isolation, building over just surviving. When I finished, Vanessa stood. All in favor of Marcus as our leader? Every hand went up. Then it's settled, Tom said. Marcus is in charge. God help us all. There was nervous laughter at that, which broke some of the tension. We spent the next hour discussing practical matters, food supplies, security improvements, plans for planting gardens. It felt surreal to be leading the meeting instead of assisting with it, but people listened and contributed and worked together. Later, I found Jake on the dock, looking at the lake. The ice was breaking up now, large chunks floating in the dark water. Spring's coming, he said. Yeah, I'm scared. Me too. He looked at me. But we're going to keep trying, right? That's what Gloria would want. I thought about David and his family, about all the people we'd lost and the ones we'd saved, about Gloria's last words, about not forgiving what made us human, about choosing to keep going even when it seemed impossible. Yeah, I said. We're going to keep trying. Spring came to northern New York with startling speed. By late March, the temperature was climbing into the 40s during the day. Snow melted in rushing torrents, and the lake transformed from solid ice to open water in less than a week. The woods around Timshell erupted in green, buds appearing on trees, grass pushing through the mud, the first flowers blooming in impossible colors after months of white and gray. It was beautiful. It was also terrifying. It infected thaw with the spring, The slow, frozen corpses we'd grown accustomed to became fast, aggressive hunters. They emerged from the woods in growing numbers, drawn by the signs of life at the lodge. We fought them off daily now, small groups at first, then larger ones. Tom organized a defensive perimeter with cleared sight lines and firing positions. We dug trenches and built walls using logs and earth. It was exhausting work, but necessary. They're getting smarter, Calvin said during one of our planning meetings, or at least more coordinated. Yesterday's group hit us from 3 sides simultaneously. It's not random. Maybe they're following each other, Vanessa suggested. Some kind of pack behavior. Or maybe the infection is evolving, I said. Learning. No one liked that possibility, but we couldn't ignore it. The gardens were our hope for the future. Patricia and Helen led teams to clear and till the soil behind the lodge. We planted seeds we'd scavenged from abandoned homes. Vegetables, herbs, even some grain. It would take months to produce food, but if we could survive that long, we might have a sustainable food source. The fishing was good. Mike and Chen took one of the resort's old boats out onto the lake and returned with strings of bass and pike. Fresh fish became a regular part of our diet, supplementing our dwindling stores of preserved food. Slowly, carefully, we were building something, but the infected kept coming. On April 3rd, we faced our biggest attack yet. Over 200 infected emerged from the woods at dawn, moving in a coordinated wave. We fought for 6 hours, shooting from the walls, falling back to secondary positions when they breached the perimeter, finally holding them at the lodge itself. We lost 2 people. Rodriguez was dragged over a wall by a group of infected and torn apart before we could save her. One of the Norwood survivors, a man named Peter, was bitten while defending the kitchen entrance. Tom shot him before he could turn. We burned the infected bodies in a massive pyre that sent black smoke into the spring sky. That night, we held a memorial service for Rodriguez and Peter, adding their names to a wooden board Tom had mounted in the dining hall, our memorial wall, listing everyone we'd lost. The list was getting long. "We can't keep this up," Tom said after the service. "We're burning through ammunition. People are exhausted, and sooner or later, our luck is going to run out." "What are you suggesting?" I asked. "We need to go on the offense. Stop waiting for them to attack and start clearing them out systematically. Create a safe zone around Timshell and push them back." "With what resources? We barely have enough ammunition to defend, let alone attack." Calvin cleared his throat. "There might be a way. Fort Drum." Everyone looked at him. "The base went dark months ago," I said. "You said it yourself. It's gone." I said the base went dark. I didn't say it was empty. The Army stores massive amounts of supplies on base. Weapons, ammunition, food, medical equipment. If we could get inside, even just raid the Armory. "That's suicide," Vanessa said. "If the base fell, it could have tens of thousands of infected inside. Or it could be locked down and empty. We don't know until we check." Calvin looked at me. "Marcus, it's a risk, but it might be our only chance to get the resources we need for long-term survival." I thought about it, about all the ways it could go wrong. But I also thought about dwindling supplies, our exhausted people, our uncertain future. How many people would we need? 10, maybe 12. Best fighters, best shots. Hit fast, get what we need, and get out. When? Soon, before the infected get more active. We've got maybe a 2-week window. I looked around at my leadership team. Tom, Calvin, Vanessa, Mike. Thoughts? "Risky but necessary," Tom said. "We need those supplies." "I agree," Mike added. "But we need to plan this carefully. One mistake and we lose our best people." Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Do it, but make sure you come back. All of you." I nodded. "All right, Calvin, you plan the mission. Tom, you help him pick the team. We go in 1 week, and I'm coming with you." "Marcus?" Tom started. "I'm coming," I repeated. "Gloria taught me that leaders don't ask people to take risks they wouldn't take themselves. This is my call, so I'm going." No one argued with that. We spent the next week preparing. Calvin studied maps of Fort Drum, identifying the armory and planning approach routes. Tom drove the strike team in tactics and coordination. Vanessa prepared medical supplies in case things went wrong. Jake found me the night before we were set to leave. You really going? Yeah. What if you don't come back? I looked at this kid who'd become something like a little brother to me over the past months. Then Tom takes over, and you help him the way you've been helping me. But I plan on coming back, Jake. I've got reasons to. Like what? Like you. Like everyone here. Like the gardens we planted and the future we're trying to build. I put my hand on his shoulder. Gloria told me something about before she died. She said humans need more than food and shelter. They need meaning and beauty and reasons to be alive. You're part of that reason, Jake. You and everyone else here. So yeah, I'm coming back. He hugged me suddenly, fiercely. I hugged him back. And for a moment, we were just two people trying to find comfort in a world that had taken everything from us. The next morning, 12 of us loaded into 3 vehicles and headed south toward Fort Drum. The base sat about 50 miles south of Timshell, near the city of Watertown. We approached cautiously, taking back roads and watching for infected. The countryside was green and alive, so different from the frozen wasteland it had been just months ago. Under other circumstances, it would have been beautiful. We saw our first signs of trouble 10 miles from the base. Abandoned vehicles or military vehicles blocked the road. Some of them burned out. We went around them carefully, weapons ready. Fort Drum appeared through the trees like a ghost city. The main gate was closed, but not locked. Someone had opened it and left it that way. We drove through slowly, scanning for threats. The base was massive, over 100,000 acres with hundreds of buildings. It had housed over 20,000 soldiers in its peak. Now it was silent, empty, dead. Where is everyone? Chen whispered. That's what worries me, Calvin answered. We drove deeper into the base, following Calvin's directions toward the armory. The streets were empty, but showed signs of fighting. Bullet holes in buildings, blood stains on pavement, abandoned equipment. Whatever had happened here was violent. The army was a large concrete building surrounded by a fence. The gate was closed but unlocked. We stopped outside and studied the building. Looks intact, Tom said through binoculars, but there's no way to know what's inside. Only one way to find out, Calvin said. We approached on foot, leaving 2 people with the vehicles. The armory door was secure with a keypad lock that should have required a code, but someone had shot the lock out recently, judging by the damage. Calvin pushed the door open slowly. Inside was darkness. We entered with flashlights and weapons, moving in tactical formation. The entrance hall was empty. So was the first storage room. But in the second room, we found what we came for. Weapons, hundreds of them, still in their racks. Crates of ammunition stacked floor to ceiling. Medical supplies. MREs by the thousands. Body armor. Communications equipment. Everything we needed and more. Jackpot, Tom breathed. Too easy, I said. Why wasn't this looted? Who cares? One of the others said. Let's load it up and get out. We started carrying supplies to the vehicles. On our third trip, I found the answer to my question. There was a door at the back of the armory marked basement. It was barred from the outside, heavy steel bars welded across it, and from behind it, I could hear sounds. Moaning, scratching, the unmistakable sounds of infected. Calvin, I called quietly. You need to see this. He came over, followed by Tom. They heard it too. The sounds of dozens, maybe hundreds of infected locked in the basement below us. Someone trapped them down there, Calvin said. Sealed them in before they evacuated. Which means they knew the base was compromised, Tom added. They locked up the infected and left. Where did they go? I asked. A voice answered from behind us. They went south, or tried to. We spun around, weapons up. A man stood in the doorway, white, maybe 60, wearing tattered army fatigues with colonel's insignia. He was thin to the point of emaciation, his face haggard, but his eyes were sharp and aware. He held no weapon. Who are you? Calvin demanded. Colonel Marcus Winters, U.S. Army, formerly the commanding officer of this installation. He looked around at the armory. Come to loot the place, have you? Can't say I blame you. It's not doing anyone any good sitting here. What happened here? I asked, lowering my rifle slightly. Where did everybody go? Winters laughed bitterly. Evacuated. Orders came from Washington in February. Abandoned northern New York. Fall back to defensive lines in Pennsylvania. The brass decided this whole region was lost. Too spread out. Too many infected. Too damn cold. So they loaded out whatever they could carry and left. And you stayed? Someone had to. We had over 300 infected in the basement. Soldiers who turned. Civilians who sought shelter here. I couldn't just leave them to starve or freeze. So I locked them in, and I stayed to make sure they didn't get out. He gestured vaguely at the building. Been here for 2 months, running out of food, running out of reasons. But the job's not done yet. Tom studied him. You've been here alone for 2 months, guarding infected in the basement? That's right. Why? I asked. What's the point? Winters looked at me with those sharp, tired eyes. Because someone has to do the right thing, even when nobody's watching. Those people down there, they were soldiers under my command. They deserve better than to be forgotten. He paused. Besides, if I left and they somehow got out, they'd spread across the countryside. Last thing you survivors need is 300 more infected roaming around. Calvin and I exchanged glances. There are 41 of us, I said, up at Cranberry Lake. We've been surviving the winter, trying to build something. Winter's expression shifted. Surprise. Then something like hope. 41. That's more than I expected. The evacuation order said this region was completely lost. It's not lost, I said. We're still here. He nodded slowly. Then I suppose my job really is done. He looked at the barred door. I've been thinking about how to end this. Can't leave them locked up forever. Can't risk setting them free. That leaves one option. What option? Tom asked. Burn it. Burn the whole building with them inside. Make sure they can't hurt anyone else. He looked at us. But I need help. The building won't burn easily. Too much concrete. We'd need accelerant, multiple ignition points, and someone to make sure it's done right. You're talking about cremating 300 people? Vanessa said, her voice strained. I'm talking about destroying 300 infected before they harm anyone else, Winters corrected. They stopped being people months ago. I thought about Professor Richardson, about Amy Chen, about David and his family, about all the impossible choices this new world forced on us. We'll help, I said. But first, we load our vehicles. We need these supplies. Winters nodded. Fair enough. Take what you need. When you're done, we'll finish this. It took us 3 hours to load the vehicles. We took weapons, ammunition, medical supplies, and food. As much as we could carry. The whole time, I could hear the infected below us, trapped in their concrete tomb, waiting. When we were finished, Winters led us to the armory, showing us where to place charges and accelerant. He'd clearly been planning this for a while. He had diesel fuel stored in drums, explosives from the base arsenal, everything we needed. When it goes up, it'll be visible for miles, he warned. Every infected in the area will be drawn here. You'll want to be long gone before that happens. What about you? I asked. What about me? Come with us, to Tim Shell. We could use someone with military experience, and you're more than done your duty here. Winters looked at me for a long moment. Then he looked at the barred door, at the building around us. No, this is where I need to be. These people were my responsibility. I need to see this through. You'll die, Vanessa said. Probably, but I'll die before doing what's right. He smiled sadly. Besides, I'm tired. So goddamn tired. This feels like a good place to stop. I wanted to argue, but I understood. Some people needed to see their mission through to the end, no matter the cost. Gloria had been like that. Maybe I was becoming like that too. Thank you, I said finally, for staying, for doing what needed to be done. Winters shook my hand. Take care of those 41 people. Build something worth surviving for. We will. We left him there, setting his charges and preparing for the end. As we drove away from Fort Drum, I looked back and saw him standing in the doorway of the armory, a lone figure against the setting sun. The explosion came 15 minutes later, a massive fireball that rose into the sky, visible for miles. We felt it more than heard it, a deep concussive thump that shook the vehicles. He did it, Calvin said quietly. We drove in silence for a while. Then Chen spoke up from the back seat. He was right, you know. Someone has to do the right thing, even when no one's watching. That's what makes us different from them. Yeah, I said. It is. We reached Timshaw after dark, exhausted but alive. People pouring out of the lodge as we pulled up, excited to see what we brought. We unloaded supplies while I filled Tom in on everything that had happened. Jake found me while I was carrying ammunition into the storage room. You made it back. Told you I would. What happened? You look different. I thought about Colonel Winters, standing alone in the armory, choosing duty over survival. About Rodriguez and Peter trying to protect the rest of us. About Gloria spending her last months making sure we had a future. I met someone who reminded me of what we're fighting for, I said. Not just survival, but the idea that humans can still be good, can still do the right thing, even when the world's ending. Jake considered this. That's what Gloria said, about choosing to be good. Yeah, it is. That night, we held a celebration of sorts, with the supplies from Fort Drum. We had enough ammunition for months, enough food to supplement our gardens, enough medical equipment for Vanessa to actually save lives. For the first time since the outbreak began, we had real hope for the future. I stood on the dock watching the sun set over Cranberry Lake. The water was calm, reflecting the orange and purple sky. Spring was in full bloom now. Trees green, flowers blooming, birds singing. The world was coming back to life. The infected were still out there, still a threat. We'd faced more attacks, more losses, more impossible choices. But we'd also have this, a community of 41 people, 40 now, after Rodriguez and Peter, who'd chosen to survive together, to build together, to be more than just scared animals hiding from monsters. Tom joined me on the dock. You did good out there, Marcus. The supply run, bringing back all the equipment, Gloria would be proud. I hope so. What's next? I thought about it. About the gardens growing behind the lodge. About the children learning to read with Helen. About Vanessa training more medics. About all the small acts of building and creating and hoping. Next, we live. I said, we defend what we built. We grow food. We teach the kids. We remember what it means to be human. And when fall comes and winter returns, we'll be ready. You think we can make it? Long term? I looked back at the lodge, warm and lit from within, full of people who'd become something like family. I thought about everything we'd survived, everything we'd built, everything we'd chosen despite the odds. Yeah, I said, I think we can. The attack came 3 days later at dawn. We were ready for it this time. Tom and Calvin had established a perimeter watch system, and the guards spotted the infected while they were still a quarter mile away. There were at least 300 of them, emerging from the woods in a coordinated wave that definitely was not random. Everyone to positions, Tom's voice echoed through the lodge. We'd drill for this. Everyone knew their role, their position, their fallback points. The fighters grabbed weapons and moved to the walls. The non-combatants secured the lodge and prepared backup positions. Helen took the children to the upper floor safe room we'd constructed. I took my position on the wall next to Tom. Calvin on my other side. The infected approached steadily, and I could see them more clearly now. Hundreds of gray, shambling figures, all moving with purpose toward our position. Hold fire until they're in range, Tom commanded. Make every shot count. The infected reached out our cleared kill zone, the area we'd stripped of cover and obstacles. Tom gave the order. Fire! The battle lasted 4 hours. Wave after wave of infected crashed against our defenses. We fought from the walls until they were overrun, then fell back to the secondary positions. When those were breached, we retreated into the lodge itself, fighting room by room. I lost count of how many I killed. My rifle overheated from the sustained fire. I switched to my pistol, then to Mike's shotgun when that ran dry. Around me, people fought with everything they had. Rifles, pistols, axes, even sharpened poles when ammunition ran out. Chen died holding the kitchen entrance, buying time for the others to evacuate to the upper floors. One of the Norfolk teachers, Sarah, who taught Jake, was pulled through a broken window before anyone could save her. Steve took a bite to the shoulder, and Tom shot him before he could turn. But we held. As the sun climbed toward noon, the infected assault finally broke. The remaining ones, maybe 50 out of the 100 that attacked, retreated into the woods. We'd won, but at terrible cost. We'd lost 9 people, 9 more names for the memorial wall. That night, exhausted and grieving, we gathered in the dining hall. I stood before everyone, looking at the 31 survivors who remained, blood-stained, exhausted, traumatized, but alive. I know you're tired, I said. I know you're scared. I know you're wondering if this is worth it. All the fighting, all the loss, all the struggle. And I can't answer that for you. Everyone has to make their own choice about whether to keep going. I paused, gathering my thoughts. But I can tell you what I choose. I choose to believe that we can make it. That these gardens we planted will grow. That these children we're teaching will have a future. That this community we're building will survive and thrive and become something worth all the sacrifice it's cost. I looked at Jake, at Vanessa, at Tom and Calvin and Mike, at Patricia and Helen and all the others who'd fought and bled and refused to give up. Gloria taught me a word, I continued. Timshel, it means thou mayest. It means we have the power to choose who we are and what we do, even in the worst circumstances, especially in the worst circumstances. Every day, we choose to survive. Every day, we choose to help each other. Every day, we choose to be human instead of just surviving. I held up a glass of water. We'd run out of anything better months ago. So I'm choosing to keep going. I'm choosing to believe that spring means rebirth. Not just for the infected, but for us. I'm choosing to build something that lasts. And asking all of you to make that choice with me. To Timchel, Tom said, raising his glass. To Gloria, Vanessa added. To everyone we've lost, Jake said quietly. And everyone we saved. To the future, Calvin finished. We drank together. Survivors in a world that had tried to kill us. Choosing to live anyway. Spring turned to summer. The gardens grew, producing food that supplemented our hunting and fishing. We expanded them, planting more, learning what worked in northern New York's short growing season. Patricia became an expert in preservation, smoking meat, pickling vegetables, preparing for the next winter. The infected attacks continued, but became more manageable. We learned their patterns, anticipated their movements, and defended our territory effectively. The supplies from Fort Drum gave us the ammunition we needed to hold them off. We sent our salvage teams to nearby towns, gathering supplies and equipment. We found solar panels and got them working with Mike's help. We recovered books from libraries and started building our own collection. Helen's school grew from 3 children to 5 when we found 2 more survivors hiding in the woods. By August, we had 40 people again. New survivors we'd found, or who had found us through radio broadcasts we started making. A family of 4 from Ogdensburg. 3 college students who'd survived in a campus building. A park ranger who'd been alone in a fire tower for months. Each new arrival brought skills, knowledge, and stories. Each one was another choice to keep making. Trying, keep building, keep hoping. I found myself settling in to leadership. It wasn't natural. I still felt like a literature professor pretending to know what he was talking about. But people listened and contributed and worked together. Tom and Calvin handled military matters. Vanessa managed health and medicine. Patricia ran logistics. I coordinated between them, solved disputes, and tried to think about long-term future. Jake became my indispensable right hand. At 13 now, he'd grown 3 inches and had a maturity far beyond his years. He managed schedules, tracked supplies, and spotted problems before they became crises. His nightmares had lessened, though they never completely went away. He was learning to carry his trauma, to function despite it. One evening in late August, I stood on the dock watching the sunset. The air was warm, insects buzzed over the water, and somewhere in the lodge behind me, someone was playing a guitar, an instrument we'd salvaged from a music store in Canton. The music drifted across the water, the first music I'd heard in months. Vanessa joined me. Beautiful, isn't it? The sunset, the music, all of it. Yeah, I agreed. It is. We're going to make it, Marcus. Not just survive, really make it. You think so? I know so. We've got food, growing, people learning, systems at work. We've lost people. God knows we've lost so many people. But we're still here, and we're still building. I thought about David and Jessica, about Emma and Liam, about Gloria and Rodriguez and Colonel Winters, about all of the people who hadn't made it to see this sunset. Do you think they'd be proud? I asked quietly. The ones we lost? Vanessa considered this. I think they'd be grateful. We're living for them, in a way, keeping their memory alive by refusing to give up. The guitar music continued, joined now by voices singing. One of the college kids had a good voice, and others were learning a song. It was rough and imperfect and absolutely beautiful. What do you miss most? Vanessa asked. From before. Coffee, I said immediately, and she laughed. Real coffee, not the burnt chicory root substitute Patricia makes. What about you? My sister. She lived in California. We used to talk every Sunday night, just checking in, sharing our weeks. Vanessa's voice was soft. I'll never know what happened to her. If she's alive somewhere, if she made it. That's the worst part, not knowing. We stood in comfortable silence, listening to the music and the water. Marcus, Vanessa finally said. Thank you. For what? For getting us here. For making this place what it is. Gloria chose right when she picked you. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. The summer passed into fall, and fall into winter again. The second winter was easier than the first. We had better supplies, better defenses, better knowledge. The infected slowed in the cold, and we used the quiet months to repair, rebuild, and plan. By the time spring returned again, the second spring since the outbreak, we had grown to 53 people. We built 2 more cabins to house everyone. The gardens had tripled in size. We had a working school, a functioning medical bay, a communication systems that connected to 3 other survivor communities in upstate New York. We had lost people along the way, to injuries, to illness, to infected attacks. The memorial wall was longer now, covered in names. But we'd also gained people, saved people, given them hope and purpose. On the anniversary of Gloria's death, March 12th, 1 year later, we held a ceremony at her grave. Everyone gathered on the pine tree, and I spoke about her legacy, about the community she'd helped build, about the choice she'd made to keep them even from when she was dying. Jake placed fresh flowers in the grave, wildflowers she'd found growing near the lake. Thank you, he said simply, for everything. As we walked back to the lodge, Tom fell into step beside me. You know what's remarkable? What? A year ago, we had 42 people and we were just trying to survive the spring thaw. Now we have 53 people and we're planning for the future. That's growth, Marcus. Real growth. We've lost people too, I reminded him. But we have. But the trend is always upward. More people joining than dying. That means something. It did mean something. It meant we were winning, slowly and painfully, but winning. That night, I sat in the office that had been Gloria's, that I'd inherited along with her responsibilities. Maps covered the walls, showing our territory. A radio crackled softly in the corner, monitoring the channels we'd established with other survivor groups. Jake knocked on the doorframe. You wanted to see me? Yeah, come in, sit down. He sat, looking curious and slightly worried. At 14 now, he was almost as tall as me, his red hair longer than it had been, his face losing the last traces of childhood. I've been thinking about the future, I said, about what happens next to Tim Shell, for all of us. And I've been thinking about leadership, about succession planning. Succession? What happens if something happens to me? Who takes over? Who keeps this place running? I leaned forward. Tom and Calvin will handle military decisions. Vanessa handles medical. Patricia handles logistics. But we need someone who can coordinate between them, who can see the big picture and think long term. Someone smart, organized, and trusted. Jake's eyes widened. You mean me? Eventually. You're too young now. But in a few years, you'd be ready. You already do half the job anyway. The scheduling, the supply tracking, the problem solving. You just need to learn the people management side of things. I don't know if I can. I didn't know if I could either, I interrupted. None of us did. But we chose to try anyway. That's what Tim Shell means, remember? Thou mayest. You have the power to choose. He was quiet for a long moment, processing this. Then he said, Okay, I'll try. Good, because I'm not planning on going anywhere, but it's good to know someone's ready if needed. Jake stood to leave, then paused at the door. Marcus? Thanks for believing in me, for not treating me like the traumatized kid who'd killed his dad. You're not that kid anymore, I said. You're someone who survived hell and chose to become someone good anyway. That's who you are. After he left, I sat in the quiet office, listening to the sounds of the lodge around me. People talking, moving, living. 53 people who had all made the choice to keep going, to keep building, to keep hoping. Outside, spring was in full bloom again, the second spring, and we were still here. I thought about everything we'd survived. The frozen winter, the attacks, the losses, the impossible choices. I thought about David and Gloria and all the others who'd made it out. And I thought about the future we were building. One day at a time, one choice at a time. Tim shall, I thought. Thou mayest. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Tomorrow the infected might attack again. Tomorrow we might lose more people. But tomorrow we could also plant seeds, teach children, heal the sick, and build something worth surviving for. Tomorrow we would choose to live. And that choice, that simple, profound choice to keep trying despite everything, that was what made us human. That was what would separate us from the frozen dead. We would survive this. Not just survive, but build something new from the ashes of the old world. Something better. Maybe. Something that remembered both the mistakes and the triumphs of what came before. I stood and walked to the window, looking out at Tim Shell, our community, our home, our future. The gardens were green with growing plants. The cabins showed warm lights. People moved between buildings, going about their evening routines. It wasn't much, not compared to what the world had been, but it was ours, and it was enough. I turned off the office light and went to join the others for dinner, ready to face whatever tomorrow would bring. Because that's what we did now. We faced tomorrow, together, and we kept choosing to live. Epilogue. 5 years later, Tim Shell had grown to 143 people. The community spread across the resort property and into the surrounding woods. We'd built new cabins, established a working farm, and created systems that actually worked. The children, 12 of them now, attended school every day with Helen and 2 other teachers. Vanessa's medical clinic had real equipment and trained assistants. We had electricity from solar and hydroelectric power. We had food security. We had hope. The infected were still out there. They always would be, but their numbers had thinned over the years. Exposure, starvation, our systematic clearing operations, they were a manageable threat now, not an existential one. I stood on the dock of a warm summer evening, Jake beside me. He was 19 now, tall and confident, serving as my deputy and learning leadership the way I'd learned from Gloria. The council meeting is in an hour, he reminded me. We need to discuss the proposal from the Syracuse community. They want to establish a trade route. I know. Thanks for the reminder. I looked at him. You ready to lead that meeting? I think it's time you started taking more of these. He looked surprised, then thoughtful. Yeah, I think I am. Good, because I'm getting old, and someone needs to be ready to take over. Dake laughed. You're 38, Marcus. It's not old. It feels old some days. We stood together, watching the sun set over the lake. The water was calm, reflecting the orange sky. Birds called from the trees. Somewhere behind us, someone was playing music. We had a whole band now. People who'd rediscovered instruments and the joy of creating something beautiful. Do you think about them? Jake asked quietly. The ones who didn't make it? Every day, I admitted. David and his family, Gloria, Rodriguez, all of them. But I also think about what we built here, about how we chose to keep going when everything seemed hopeless. That's their legacy. Not the way they died, but what they did because they lived. Timshell, Jake said. Timshell, I agreed. Thou mayest. We choose to survive. We chose to build. We chose to hope. And look what we created. I gestured at the community around us. The buildings, the gardens, the people moving through the evening, alive and purposeful. It wasn't the old world. It would never be the old world. But it was something new. Something we'd built together from the frozen ashes of civilization. Come on, I said to Jake. We've got work to do. We walked back to the lodge together, ready to face the future, ready to keep pushing, ready to keep building. Because that's what we did. We survived. We built. We hoped. And we never, ever stopped choosing to live. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that story. This is the completion of this story arc. I like to throw these little epilogues in so that there's closure, you know? I mean, I guess you could keep going with the story indefinitely, but I think we had a nice arc for Marcus. You know, he started out as a scared guy, ended up as the leader of this big group, and I enjoyed reading it, so I hope you guys really enjoyed listening to it. Come back next time for some more scary stories, and as always, remember to face your fears.